it's about that time. We're going to build our game engine workflow. So you're going to hit new sequence and you want to give your workflow a name of game engine and hit create to create the workflow. And within our game engine, we're going to have a sequence followed by 2 log messages. For the first log message, we can use something like starting game engine as the message, leave the log level as info. And for the second, you could use something like finish game engine and the log level can be info. Don't forget, this is just to follow RPA best practice. The next thing I want to do is head over to my project panel and drag the load quiz bucket right here to get it invoked. Hit on import arguments, expand on this. Now for my game requests, I'm going to expand on this. So click open in expression editor, and I would love to create a variable, Control K, and I'll call this game request. I hit enter and save. For my quiz bucket, I'm going to do the same thing. Expand on this, open in expression editor, and I'm going to create a variable here, Control K, and I call it quiz bucket. I hit enter and save. Now I'm going to save and Control S to save. The next thing you want to do is click on any item within the bounds of your sequence. It can be the log message or it can be this workflow. Head over to variables and you should see quiz bucket and game request. Go to the scope for quiz bucket and you want to make it game engine. This means that the variable quiz bucket is visible to the entire game engine workflow. For the game request, you want to right click on game request and make it an argument, so convert to argument. Make sure the direction is in and you're good. Hit Ctrl S to save. The reason why we are converting game request into an argument is because game requests would be generated by another workflow outside of this game engine. And the value of game requests will be brought into the game engine via the game request argument. Pin this down. Okay, so now let's show our form. So you want to look for a show form activity and you want to have that activity right after the load quiz bucket. And for the form, you want to select your game engine form. In fact, you should head over to project and move your game engine form into the forms folder in your data. So I'm going to move it into my forms folder. And now I want to reselect the right form, which should be coming from data /forms/ game engine form. Next, we want to have an assign. And I want you to rename this to test only. So we can remember that we need to delete this assign when we are done. So in this assign, you want to set the value of game requests. And you want to make the value, so open an expression editor and make the value equal to this. This is a mock data of our game request. This is what game request should look like when it is generated from the workflow that generates the game request. I hit save and I'm good. Ctrl S to save. All right. Now we need a multiple assign. So drag a multiple assign right below your load quiz bucket. And you want to create a variable called player score. So hit Ctrl K and player score. Enter. And you want to set the value of player score to 0. Now you can see some errors here. So just go to the variable panel and you would notice the player score is a string. You want to make this an integer. And you want to make the scope visible to the entire workflow. So I'm going to change this to game engine and hit Ctrl S to save. Okay, so now pin this down and you want to go to your form and expand on this. Now in the value side for player name, I'm going to open in expression editor and I'm going to say go into the game request dictionary and grab the player name. And I hit save. So this is going to grab the player name from the game request dictionary and transfer it into the form using the player name property. And the same goes for score points. I'm going to open an expression editor, and for score points, I'm going to set this to player score. I hit save. And now if you notice, we have an error here, and that's because score points here is a string, but player score is an integer. I can simply make this an integer and we're fine. I hit save, Control S to save. Now go back to the value for question numbers, open an expression editor, and we want to set the value to quiz bucket.keys.toArray. Remember, the keys in the quiz bucket represent the question number. So we're grabbing all the keys and we're converting them to an array. I hit save, and that array is going to be saved in a variable question numbers. Control S to save, and we're good. Now we're going to have a for each. For each, you want to have this for each right after your show form, and you're going to be looping through question numbers. Within this for each, you're going to have a sequence, and within this sequence, the first thing you're going to have is a multiple assign. All right, so click on the for each, and you want to go to properties, and you can see current number. I want you guys to rename this to current quiz question number so it makes sense. So ideally, this variable here represents a single item from the array of question numbers. Click out here and Control S to save. Don't forget to click outside of here and hit Control S to save, so this can take effect. All right. Next, you want to go to the multiple assign here, and you want to create a variable, Control K, called question. Hit enter, and in the value, you're going to set the value to this. So you're going to go into the quiz bucket, and you're going to grab the corresponding value related to the question number. Remember that value is an array, and the first item in the array is the question. So you're going to say grab the first item in the array, and this is going to return the question. I'm going to remove the excessive space I have here and save. Control S to save. Just in case that beats your imagination, if you go back to project and you open up the load quiz bucket workflow, go down here, you should see where we created the quiz bucket. The quiz bucket is a dictionary of integer of array of string. Look at the key here, it's going to be the question number. And look at the value here, it's going to be some sort of array that contains the question, which is the first item on the array, the string list of answers, which is the second item on the array, and the correct answer, which is the third item on the array. So this is index 0, 1, and 2. And that is why in the game engine, we are trying to grab the question. So we go into the quiz bucket, passing the corresponding question number, which is the current quiz question number. And this is going to return for us an array. And remember, the question is the first item on the array. We pass in index 0 to grab that first item, and this returns our question. Now let's grab the answer options the same way. I'm going to hit add, Control K to create a variable. I'm going to call this answer options. I hit enter. I go down to variables, but this time around, I'm going to make this the type of array of string because the answer options is an array. I hit OK. I pin this down. Control S to save. And in the value, opening expression editor, I am going to do this. What this means is that go into the quiz bucket, grab the corresponding value using the current quiz question number, and in the value, access index 1, which is going to be our string list of answer options. And then we're going to split it by a comma because we will need to return an array. Looks good. I'm going to hit save, Control S to save, and we are good. And finally, I'm going to grab the correct answer. So I'm going to do Control K and create a variable correct answer. And for the value, I'm going to set the value to this. Similarly, as I have done for others, I am going into the quiz bucket, grabbing the corresponding value from the quiz bucket using the current quiz number and accessing index 2 of the generated array because index 2 is going to return for me the correct answer. It looks fine, and I'm going to save, Control S to save.